Welcome to BoomerTech Adventures Introduction to iPhone Basics. This is Jill, and in this video, we're going to explore both the camera and the Photos app. Let's start with the camera app. So if you have your phone there, turn it on and tap on your camera icon, and up should pop your screen with all these different icons on it. Of course, you're not going to have a picture of Black-Eyed Susans. You'll have whatever your lens is pointing at. But do notice, because I'm going to talk about it later, that with the image of the Black-Eyed Susan, there appears to be a grid. So just remember what that looks like, and we'll get to it in a minute when we go to talk about camera settings. But first, we're going to talk about camera icons. And I'm going to stop at the top, and I'm going to go left to right. So the first thing you see is a lightning bolt. That's your flash. You can pretty much ignore it. It will go on when it needs to, and the software knows when it needs additional light. Next to that are the letters HDR, high dynamic range, and that applies to exposure. I'll go in a little more detail in the next slide. Then you see yellow concentric circles. Those are live photos, which are kind of fun. The next is the timer, and then way on the right there are 3 circles, and those are filters. So let's look at each of these with a little bit more detail. HDR. As I mentioned, it has to do with exposure. Well, it does several things if you choose to have it turned on. First, it will reduce shadows in the bright sunlight, especially on people's faces. It also will improve contrast in sunset pictures so the land doesn't look just like a dark blob. And third, it will bring out details in a backlit situation. Now, live photos, I said they're kind of fun. Actually, what they are mini videos, because before you take the picture, a 1.5-second video begins, and you have a second 1.5-second video after the still photo. And so when you are looking at pictures in the Photos app and you tap on one and you see movement, it's because you had live photos on. And you want to make sure you have live photos on in a variety of situations. It does depend on the context. So if you're taking a landscape picture that has a gurgling brook in it, you might want live photos on. Or if you're taking a picture of moving pets or little toddlers or a windy situation. It's really just something you need to play around with. Now, of course, if you send these live photos to someone, they only see the still. Then there's the timer. And when you tap on the timer, you will have a choice of 3 seconds or 10 seconds. You tap on whichever one you want. Then you tap the shutter. And then if you're trying to be in the picture, you get yourself in the picture. So you probably would tap on 10 seconds there. And make sure you have a clear path to where you want to stand or sit, because we don't want anybody tripping and ending up with a face plant. Now, where else might you use the timer? Well, if you want to take a picture and absolutely make sure there's no movement, that your hand doesn't shake, if you brace your camera either with a tripod or against something and then set the timer, you will be sure that the picture will be an absolute crisp focus. Now, the filters, I think, are another fun aspect. They allow you to change the appearance of the image. And if you look at the shot on the left, you see there's a slider bar, and I have it set at vivid warm. And that changes the coloration of the picture. And you can see down below in that slider bar that I could indeed choose different appearances. In fact, I can even choose to make it a black and white picture. So that's fun to play with. And also, you can use filters in the Photos app when you're editing. And again, we'll get to that in a few minutes. Now, let's go to the bottom part of the screen and look at the icons. First of all, you see the types of images you can take. Time-lapse, slow-mo, and video, of course, are all videos. Time-lapse condenses the time. So if you set your camera on time-lapse and brace it against something and leave it for 10 minutes and then stop it, what you will see is what has happened will have been condensed and it will go super fast. I don't know if you're a Facebook user, but a while ago, time-lapse was really popular where people were demonstrating how to make a particular dish, and you would see their movements, the adding of ingredients very quickly. It was done with time-lapse. Slow-mo, on the other hand, slows everything down, but it's a great way to check your tennis swing or your golf swing. And coaches use it a lot with their teams to show them where they need to improve a particular part of maybe their jump shot or, again, a tennis swing or a golf swing. And of course, then there's straight up video. You do not need an external microphone. The mic picks up sound very well, including background sound. Then there is the photo, which is your standard rectangular picture. Portrait. This allows you to take pictures that you can give the appearance that you were in a portrait studio. Now, not all iPhone camera apps have the portrait option. It's the more recent ones, like I think the 8, the 10, the 11, and probably the 12 coming out. Then there's the square. If you like to post to social media, you might really want to consider taking your pictures with the square option because things won't get cropped when you post them. And lastly, there's the panorama, and that's where you can get the wide sweeping view of landscape or a scene that you would really like to capture all sorts of detail with. Underneath all your choices for types of images is your thumbnail on the left. And when you tap on that, you'll see the picture you just took, and right then you can decide, do I want to keep it? And if you do, it will automatically go to the Photos app. And if you don't want to keep it, you can hit the trash can and you will delete it. Right in the middle is the shutter, of course. And I just want to tell you that all you need is a light tap. You do not need to stab it and move the phone and then get a fuzzy picture. Just a light tap, because the shutter doesn't really trip until you remove your finger. And then lastly, over on the right, the camera direction. This is where you take your selfies or you take the picture with the lens facing forward. And if you've never played around with that, tap it and suddenly you will see yourself in living color. And then tap it again and the picture will be what is straight ahead of you. All right, let's go to settings. So tap on the settings icon, and once you get there, scroll down till you find camera. And when you do, tap on camera. And there are lots of options, but there are two I want to talk about specifically. First is the grid. Now, do you remember when I showed you that first picture of the Black-Eyed Susans that I said, notice the grid. You can turn it on or you can turn it off here. I keep it on because it helps me to compose a picture. It helps me decide where I want the main focus to be. Do I want it in the upper right-hand or left-hand quadrant, or do I want to focus on the object in the bottom part of the image? It just helps you think artistically about the images you're choosing to shoot. The second thing I'd like you to look at is Auto HDR. Now, some of you will have the choice of it just plain HDR, or nothing about HDR at all. The newer cameras have the option to go with auto HDR, which the software makes the decision, do you need to use HDR for the proper exposure? But check out and see what you have. The keep normal photo, what that means is the HDR, when you have that on, it takes 3 pictures. It takes the regular exposure, then it takes a picture that's a little overexposed and one that's a little underexposed, and it combines it into the best exposure that could possibly be. And if you turn on keep normal photo, your first photo plus the blended photo will stay in your Photos app. And it does take up more room, so you have to decide whether you're going to take a lot of pictures and whether or not you want to keep both of them. And of course, in Photos app, you can always go in and delete it later. All right, speaking of Photos app, let's move on. All right, so if you tap on the Photos app, you should eventually get to a picture where you see all of the images you have taken. And at the bottom, there is a menu, Photos, For You, Album, and Search. And if you don't see all your pictures, tap on Photos and you will see something similar to what's on the screen. Of course, they'll be your pictures, not my pictures. Now, Photos, of course, is all the pictures you've taken. Then moving towards the right, For You, these are automatic gatherings of images that the software does based on places you've been or people you've been with or a different activity or maybe a holiday. And they're just kind of fun. The software puts them together for you. You can go in and edit some of it. The third choice is albums, and we'll go into albums a little bit more detail in just a few minutes. And lastly, you can search your pictures for a specific image. So we're still on Photos, and here are your options. You can search by year, and you can see them there listed 2020, 2019. You can search by month or by days, or you can hunt through all your photos. Sometimes I have to do that because I forget, well, what year was I there with those people? So that's where search comes in handy. You know, I could put in search Grand Canyon and it would pop up. But more about that in a minute. But I just want to show you how the pictures are organized. Notice under months and days, not only do they have the month and the day, but they also have where the picture was taken, which is also helpful. Okay, the For You. As I said, these are automatically generated. If you have created shared albums, they will be here so you can find them quickly. Then there's memories, and these are short slideshows that the software has put together, and they can be edited, and they just pop up unannounced. You never know when the software is going to decide to present you with a new memory. Kind of fun. And this is what those memories look like. You see the one on the left. These are done by specific day. And the other option is, you see I have some featured photos. So For You is just a neat little extra that Apple puts in the Photos app. Now, let's take a look at albums more closely. Some of the albums you create, and you can see it says My Albums there on the image on the left, and others, called media types, are automatically created. And let's talk about the media albums first. It's really handy to have the software categorize for you the different kinds of pictures. So, for example, if I know that I'm looking for a specific panorama and I forget which year I took it or which month, if I just come to albums and click on panoramas, I can find it much more quickly when I'm only looking at 71 pictures rather than 3 or 4 or 5,000 pictures. And you see the different options there. Now, back to my albums. You create a new album by tapping on that blue plus sign up in the upper left-hand corner. And when you do that, this is what you'll see. First, on the left, you will see there's a new message box down at the bottom, and you have the option to do new album or new shared album or cancel. Probably you're just going to do a new album. You can always share it later. If you know you're going to share it because maybe they're wedding pictures or family reunion pictures, you can tap on New Shared Album. Once you tap on New Album, a new message box will pop up and you're asked to enter a title of your album. So let's do that. Okay, I'm going to have Demo 56. Once I've typed the name in, I will tap Save. And the next thing that happens is a new screen appears and it's all my photos. Wow, lots of choices. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and I'm going to tap the ones I want in that album. And when I tap on them, you will see a blue circle appears with a white check mark. Now, if I decide I don't want one of those pictures in it, I just tap on it, the circle again, and it goes away. But once I've settled on the pictures I want in this new album, then I tap Done up in the upper right-hand corner there. You can see it. It's in blue. Don't forget to tap Done. And that new album, in this case Demo 56, will show up in the section of photos called My Albums. So again, pretty straightforward. Let's talk a little bit more about search. When you tap search down in the lower right-hand corner, you will see a screen that will pop up and it's got a search window, and right now it says photos, people, places, etc. So you simply tap in or type in what you're looking for. In this case, over on the right, I was looking for cats, so I typed in cats, and you will see that I have 93 pictures of cats and 73 pictures of adult cats. So I would just tap on See All, and I could choose the one I was looking for. So now we move on to what about when you just select an image? What are your options? So I have selected an image of brownie torte. Doesn't it look yummy? And down at the bottom, there are 3 icons that give me some choices. Starting on the left, that's the share button, the square with the arrow pointing up. The heart is favorites, and of course the trash can, which means delete. So if I want to share this picture, I would tap on the share icon, and then I could choose to send it as a text, as a message, as an email. I could send it to social media. There are a variety of options. I could also mark it as a favorite, and it would be in my favorites album, or I could choose to get rid of it. But the really fun part of photos is edit. And you see the edit option is in the upper right-hand corner. And I would tap on that right now if I were you. And you have a variety of options that will help you improve your image. So once again, I'm going to look at the icons down on the bottom after the word cancel. The first one, which sort of looks like a dial, is actually appearance. And the options under there include things like the exposure, lightness and darkness, the saturation of the color, the brilliance, the brightness of the color, and a lot more. The middle icon is those 3 circles again, which are the filters. And lastly, over on the right is the icon for cropping. So let's go in a little bit more detail. So on appearance, you will see there's a whole series of icons that all around with different shadings, different shapes in them. Well, just from the icons, you couldn't tell what they meant. But when you tap on one, the word above it explains which appearance feature you can work on. In this case, I've got it set on brilliance. And then do you see underneath the icon is a series of hash marks? Well, that's a slider bar. And if you slide your finger along that, you will see changes in your image. And you can leave it the way it is, but if you want to emphasize something different, you can move the hash marks to the place that you really like. And you don't just choose one of these. You can use all of these different icons to just tweak the image to what you want it to look like. And remember that those hash lines is actually a slider bar. So when we get done with this video, you ought to play with this a little bit and see how it changes your image. And it really is possible to take kind of a so-so image and make it pretty spectacular. Once again, are these filters. Again, there's a slider bar. Right now, I have this set on dramatic warm, which sort of turns the whipped cream frosting. It's got kind of a little glow to it that it didn't have in the original. And once again, I could slide it among those different filters and get the appearance that I want. And also, I can go right to black and white if I'd like. Cropping, one of my favorite tools. You see how the edges of the image have become bold? Well, you slide those and you're able to, on the diagonal, you slide them on the diagonal, and often you are able to get rid of extraneous stuff you don't want, and you can focus on the subject. You have to be careful. You can't crop tiny because then the picture gets pixelated. But it's worth playing around with, and you often, as I said, can get rid of things that detract from the main focus. So here are the big ideas. Your camera app is going to offer you a variety of images and video experiences. And you really do need to experiment. You just need to play with it. And if you don't like it, you can get rid of it immediately and you can retake it. That's the beauty of digital photography. When you go to the Photos app, your pictures are going to be organized chronologically. Again, you have a variety of albums, ones you can create, plus those media albums. And as I said, the editing options in your Photos app can help you turn just kind of mediocre pictures really into stunning images if you're willing to spend the time. Now, I just want to mention here that BoomerTech Adventures does offer two mini courses that are focused just on the camera and the Photos app. And in that, we go into a lot more detail, things like more detail about exposure, how to focus, how to take burst pictures, all sorts of things, and a lot more about editing. You can find these pictures at boomertechadventures.com/shop, or if you are in Maine, your adult education center may also be offering them. So if you're interested, you ought to check them out. Just a reminder, as you know by now, because I'm sure this isn't the first video you're watching in the series, there are 11 videos altogether, and as you work your way through them, you will really become quite conversant with what your iPhone can do. This has been Jill from BoomerTech Adventures. If you have never visited our webpage, I hope you will, boomertechadventures.com. If you like to use Facebook, we do have a Facebook page, so just look for us, search for BoomerTech Adventures. And if you like learning by video, you would probably enjoy going to our YouTube channel and checking out our options there. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.